Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Sipka. I'm one of the founders at Linqia. We pioneered the creator ecosystem back in early 2000. So we've been living, breathing, sleeping the creator influencer economy for the last 20 years. I am dating myself. So when you think about attention, this $1 trillion super highway of attention, brands, creators have seconds to stop the scroll. Otherwise, they just keep going. So today, the theme of today is storytelling in the scroll era. So in one sentence, if you could each introduce yourself and what has changed with storytelling in the last 5 years?
Hey, all right. Hi, everyone. I'm Christie Sclater. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing for Clinique. And I don't know. I feel like there's no longer one story. It's stories in a story, in a story, in a story. It's like a Russian doll of stories that exists. And so storytelling is just so layered and more layered than ever before.
I'm Kameryn Stanhouse. I am the Global Vice President of Sports and Entertainment at IBM. I lead the partnership. So basically, my team does hospitality, technology development, and all of the marketing and storytelling. And I'm going to keep it really simple. I think we go around and round and round, but back to basics.
My name is Katie Riley. I lead social media at AT&T. So that's content, influencers, technology, engagement, governance, all of the above. And I would say it's just kind of shifted to if you create something beautiful, that's not just it anymore. And our roles are really to earn the rights into people's feeds versus paying to interrupt them. So that really kind of shifts how you create and how you think about it.
Good morning. My name's Tyler Rutstein. I'm the SVP of Global Brand and America's Marketing at Under Armour. I think the biggest way storytelling has changed today is how we think about the first 3 seconds.
Perfect. Yeah. So our first segment is what has changed in the scroll era. So Christie, beauty brands have always been great storytellers, transformation, confidence, aspiration. So how do you translate that emotional storytelling into a 10-second reel or a TikTok without losing the magic?
Look, I think it goes so much more. It's far beyond one post, right? Because today you have to be able to show not just that there's a moment of engagement, but it's the backstory that leads to the 10 seconds. So it's all the work that gets up there. I think a good example for us is we launched a new foundation that was more of a lightweight foundation for any of you who know makeup. And it was the sort of product which was sort of, there's this one influencer who's known, Meredith Duxbury, for heavier foundations. And she talks about them all the time. And we're like, okay, wouldn't it be crazy if we launched this product with someone who was known for the opposite thing? And so it took actually a couple of years of working with her and having her come in and try the product and actually going through the full backstory. And she worked with us to create the content. So when it did come out, we did have those 10 seconds or whatever it was actually it was so much more than the one moment. It was a whole story and a whole back end to it, which led it to be, I think, pretty effective. So
Perfect. Katie, congratulations on celebrating 150 years. I didn't know that the founder of AT&T actually invented the telephone.
Yeah, so. Alexander Graham Bell, our OG.
So you oversee social for one of the biggest telecom brands in the world. What does brand storytelling look like when the platform itself, the feed, decides what people see? You know, your storytelling platform is rooted in connection, changes everything. So how do you balance speaking to product and services benefits versus your brand equity?
No, that's a wonderful question because it's a lot. And I think why social didn't really exist as a team at AT&T more than about a year and a half ago. And a lot of that was because our storytelling was sizzle reels from the ad team and product things that other people would give us and what our sponsorships used to be doing. And there wasn't a unique social strategy. And really social, especially organically, is in service of the brand. And I think some of the things that we're working to change here is that we're not a utility, but we're starting to get into that utility space where when you think about Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, there's not a lot technologically that differentiates us, but there is because we're the best. But when it really goes for what the consumer cares about, it's being a brand that they actually care about. And when you think about what do people think about AT&T, it's really nothing. They think about us like a utility. So our job is to build that storytelling, to understand who our audience is and create specifically for them. So we've broken our core audiences into cohorts. And those cohorts are constantly changing, but we're constantly thinking about, well, what's in their feed? What do they care about? And then how do we create the kind of content that they could potentially care about so that when they're seeing something from us, especially organically, it's something that it's a pleasant surprise that it came from AT&T, because we have more than enough advertising that's selling our products. We have more than enough blue ads all over the internet that when it comes to social, we can maybe humanize ourselves a little bit more.
So you're really alchemizing human connection there.
100%.
Fun job.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a fun task to take on because connecting means so many things to so many different people. So, it's allowing the audience to take that meaning and we can create around how they perceive it. So,
Tyler, short or long form content, you guys are crushing episodic content. Would love to hear a little bit more about how that all came about. And maybe if you could just describe what that is.
Yeah, we've the past 14 months at Under Armour, we've been trying to get far more youthful, far more creative, and really think about the worlds that we want to build with different narratives. So I'll give you an example. Like when we were thinking about our football spot for last year, we called We Are Football. It was kind of reclaiming the brand identity. It opens with Justin Jefferson and Gunna in the back of a Rolls Royce. So you immediately have like this suspension of disbelief. And it was a 3-minute film, and it wasn't necessarily a 30 or 60-second campaign or spot. It was a way for us to build a narrative that left you with this sort of suspension of disbelief, but also a hook at the end. And then in February, just last month, we introduced our football campaign for the Super Bowl. And if I were to survey the audience, they would think, like, what do you expect from an Under Armour football campaign? You'd probably think bunch of men playing tackle football and all those things, but we actually approached it through women's flag football. The participation rate has been growing like crazy, and I knew I couldn't afford a Super Bowl spot, but what I could afford was the ability for all these girls to see themselves in this campaign and be able to share it and know that it was made for them. And so we've been out building essentially what these narratives and chapters look like for almost all of our categories and all the ways in which we want to approach sports. And I also think from a social perspective, people are just craving that content. They want to know what's next after, even if it's a 30-second or a 3-minute film.
And thank you for supporting women's sports. Thank you. Yeah. All right, on to our second segment. Culture moves faster than campaigns. So campaigns used to take months to plan. Now, culture moves in minutes. So first question for you, Kameryn. IBM sits at the intersection of sports, entertainment, and technology through major partnerships. How do you turn partnerships with leagues and teams and events into storytelling that actually resonates in the social feed?
So one of the things, IBM's a B2B brand. If I surveyed the audience, pretty much everybody knows who we are. I bet like 20% of you actually know what we do, right? Like, we don't make computers. That's not the answer. That's always the answer people give. But we're a B2B brand. And so what these sports partnerships allow us to do is create an authentic connection with people through sports partnerships. But what we've done, I started in June, is really turn the camera around and not really just talk about what the technology is, but what the technology is enabling. And so what we're trying to do is build community through these connections, right? And so we've been working with Sclater for a year, and we've focused all of our campaigns and everything we're doing on the Tifosi. The Tifosi are their very loyal 400 million fans that follow Ferrari everywhere. And so all of our content has been telling the stories of how you became a Tifosi or a Tifosa. There's a great story of a daughter and a father. It's very generational too. A daughter and a father, and he is crying. She made his dream come true because she saved all of her money to take him to his first race. So it's really about telling the stories of these individuals in a way that helps them connect with Ferrari through not only social media, but then the long form content being on our app so that it's an unlock. People want to go see more stories in the app. And we've seen it really, really move the needle for Ferrari. We've seen 35% engagement up year over year in just these little stories that we've started. And so that's just an example of what we've done with Ferrari. We started doing the same thing for the Grammys. We surprised Leon Thomas super fans with a personalized meet and greet, and they told their stories reliving what he means to me. And I think that's the thing we talk about, all of the changes in technology. The thing that doesn't change is the impact that an athlete, a musician, a team can have on an individual. And so using those moments to create authenticity and emotional connection with our brand is so important.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're able to really instill yourself into the polarity, the tension of pulling the heartstrings with adrenaline. Like, that is masterful. So well done on that. Katie, your team lives closest to the internet culture. How do you participate in moments without feeling like the brand showed up late to the party?
Remove legal from the process. No, but really, we have Sam's on my team, and she's like, yes. So we're constantly listening, and I think we do social listening, we do video ingestion to just always know what people are talking about. I force my team to sit in front of TVs where we constantly have ESPN and CNN on. So we are always plugged into the news, and we do kind of run like a news station. So our ideas, we went from when I started, I think we would post 2 to 3 pieces of content a month. We're now up to 200 to 300 pieces of content a month. So the idea is that what's the worst thing that can happen? And if something bad does happen, we can always delete it. So as long as the brand's not being put at risk and we're not making any claims that legal would have to review, we can find ourselves as an active participant in culture in these moments of and everything's a learning. If it fell on its face, we think about that. A lot of it too is are we bringing value to this situation? Our first question is can we give somebody connectivity through this? Can we give them phones? Can we help them out if it's a conflict? Or if we are going to participate, we can't make it about our brand. We have to make it about that moment. And our participation in it, whether it be a comment or a piece of creative, has to add value, whether it's even humor or anything like that. So that's our approach, but we move fast. So it's kind of act first and then figure out whether it was a good idea later.
Thank you. So moving on to our third segment, which is the creator economy. So more and more the people telling brand stories aren't sitting inside marketing departments, they're creators, athletes and communities. So Christie, beauty brands have been pioneers in creator partnerships, and for Clinique specifically, you've actually shifted your positioning from product first to human first, unlike other beauty brands. So tell us about your recent almost 60-year-old campaign, how you went about working with your hero creator to really bringing that story to life.
Yeah, so Clinique was actually founded in 1968 by a dermatologist and a beauty editor, and so it's been around for a long time. And a lot of people have a lot of stories about the brand. And I started in this role about 2 years ago, and we made a massive pivot because the brand, while super trusted, #1 prestige beauty brand, had been losing share for a decade. And so we made sort of a big change in terms of how we think about everything. We updated brand positioning, brand messaging, all the different things. But one part of it was who's telling the story and who are we telling it to? And so what we found out is that there are these products that actually have been around for, again, from the beginning of the brand. The original founder created them, that were so loved, but they're 60 years old. And so, but at the same time, they recruit people in, they do really well, all of those things. So how do we take something that's been around for a long time and make it feel relevant and modern and fresh and loved, because it is? And so we decided that we couldn't tell that story. We needed other people to do it. So we found people who'd been using, we put it out, and it was like a crazy thing one week where we were like, okay, if you live in the New York area and you could come to us in a period of 1 week, so super, a tight time frame, and you've been using these products religiously twice a day, come talk to us. And we're like, okay, we might get maybe 5 people. We got hundreds of people who wrote on in saying, please, I want to tell my story. And so that's what the campaign was. It was, this is where great skin begins. And we had people who just shared, look, I've been using it for 40 years. I've been using it for 20 years. I've been using this for 2 months. And we put them everywhere from, the subway in Paris all the way to Vogue magazine and all over. And it was a really great moment celebrating people's very true stories.
Who was the unexpected hero? That's really what pulled on my heart.
Yeah. Okay, so there's this guy named Gian. He's an aspiring actor in New York City. He's, 26 or something. And he was talking about how he was struggling with his skin. He was trying everything. He was like turmeric, baking powder. He tells these stories of things he's putting on his face. I'm like, ooh. And then he found Clinique, and it was very emotional for him because he had really, skin is a very emotional space. It really connects to people's confidence and feelings in so many ways. And so it's just really beautiful to take something that like hits you right here and be able to tell a story.
From superheroes to everyday humans. Love it.
Yeah,
Love it. Tyler, how does Under Armour approach building narratives with creators so that the content feels native to their platforms? So Rakai's Twitch episodes to Gunner's 5K run community. How does that work for you?
Yeah, we work with creators a lot, and I think the best use for them, for us, is really like removing those contexts in which you would expect. If I look back at the last 12 months, what have been our most engaged posts, they all featured a creator of sorts. So not the last national championship, the game before that, we tapped Shane Gillis to do a campaign for Under Armour and Notre Dame. And, you know, there's nothing more captivating than having Shane Gillis with 1,000 candles behind him, like he's praying for his team to win. And in our 30-year history, I don't think we ever tapped a comedian to ever be in one of our brand campaigns. So thinking about that just immediately engages the audience and allows us to build. And it came from the fans' perspective, like praying for your team to win and why we love sports so much. With Rakai, again, he's one of the biggest Twitch streamers in the world now. We brought him into our football campaign that I spoke about earlier, and we saw the audience insight. Everyone was reacting to him having a really 3-second cameo in our campaign. And so now we've built an episodic series where if you know about him, he typically gets in trouble. He will have all access. The Twitch CEO even banned him for a couple weeks. And so he has all access to Under Armour, gets access to the private jet, and eventually misbehaves and gets banned from everything he ends up doing. So we've been trying to build those narratives from an episodic lens all throughout in which we create and work with creators. Music artists have also been a really good edge for us, whether they're defined as creators or not. It's been really cool. With Gunna, he was a central figure in our football campaign. He's authentic to the space. He has a 7-on-7 football team, but we knew we were also catching him on an album cycle, and he's been preparing to run a marathon. So for his first 20 tour spots in the morning before his show, for his most loyal fans, he ran a 5K with them, and we were there for that journey. We documented it. We're coming out with a long form world around how he's inspired so many others to run from a atypical running community. And so that's been a big part of how we just continue to grow and extend the world of our artists, our partners, our creators, and all the people that are ambassadors of Under Armour.
Beautiful, perfect. So on to our final segment, which is entertainment versus marketing. So one of the biggest shifts in marketing is that brands now have to entertain to earn attention. So, Katie, love your spot. Love the spot in my house where the call just dies. It's brilliant. So how are you tying those moments, like the AT&T dunk and AT&T untold stories? What does entertainment content look like for a brand that isn't naturally entertaining?
Yeah,
maybe you might want to just describe like how that came about.
Yeah, and what you're talking about, we call it Miscommunication, which is a creator-led series. I think like most of the folks today had talked about, like we've noticed that series have become a larger trend, and people want more like cinematic storytelling, but from the POV of creators. So we hired 2 wonderful creators, and we did something a little kind of unexpected and made quite a people at AT&T uncomfortable, which we said, what are human experiences that everybody has with connectivity that we can bring to life through funny storytelling? So one of them is she has a dead spot in her room, and anytime she goes over it, but it's like this very dramatic, cinematic telling of like every time she steps into it, it dies. And I think it was what we learned, and even we were a little scared when we were live. We're like, oh God, I hope everybody doesn't jump into our comments and talk about how cruddy our service is. Because the idea is that, we have an AT&T guarantee. We're the only connectivity company that has a guarantee, which means we cannot be perfect all the time. But when we do drop the ball, we make it right with automatic bill credits. You don't even need to call us. So it's this moment of like just taking human things. We may have also implied that one was an AT&T customer and one friend was not an AT&T customer. But, we found human moments to do storytelling within the feed, and it paid off because it made us seem more relatable. So the comments were more about people who could relate to that scenario, people who could relate to the creator, and also people that were happy that we'd recognize these young creators that didn't really have the biggest following, but we knew culturally that they aligned with our messaging, they were fun, and they hit the comedic tone. So
yeah, I love that.
Thanks.
So when we think about young audiences like Gen Z and young creators, this is really a question for you, Christie. You're a 60-year-old brand. Actually, all of You have legacy brands. So, how do heritage brands stay culturally relevant to Gen Z audiences, discovering them for the very first time?
Yeah, I think that like you're saying, everyone wants to discover. No one wants to be like, oh, this is what I used, 50 years ago. Please, no. You want to have that moment of discovery. So we had one product. It's a little lipstick in a silver case, and the shade is called Black Honey. And in 2021, it blew up on TikTok. And we were like, oh, interesting. This blew up on TikTok. And so we really quickly said, okay, we're going to start making a bunch of limited life products, taking the shade, moving it into other categories, just trying some different storytelling, pushing it out. It's grown like 50 times since then. So sometimes TikTok trends go like up and down, and this is just like gone like this. And all Gen Z being like, oh my gosh, this new product, this new lipstick, when in reality, most moms or people who've been there for a while are like, yes, I had that back in the 90s, or like I had that back in the 80s. So there's a, I don't know, just I think the way that you say it, like everyone wants to discover. And so how do you give people the opportunity to have the discovery so that they get to be the hero of the story and then go and share it with their friends?
Yeah, so in the spirit of discovering, Tyler, you are obsessed with the first 3 seconds. Can you share a little bit about like that process of how you hack the first 3 seconds of the story?
Yeah, we try and treat it like it's separately its own campaign. We know this, I think this topic is about the scroll era. So how do you really stop someone? And so for us, we always have this sort of mandate. How do we create this suspension of disbelief? And perhaps even depending on the campaign, a little touch of ridiculousness. And to give you the example, what we're talking about is like you have Gunna and Justin Jefferson, the juxtaposition of an athlete and an artist in the backseat of a car. Justin Jefferson is eating a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. We knew he was going to be on the box, the cereal box, when it came out. And I reached out to the CMO of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and I said, do you want to play with this as we kind of start? And they're great. If you know anything about their social media team, they're awesome and they live in the comments section. And typically it's the most engaged. So we get on the phone and we're talking through the approach there. They immediately drop the comment as soon as the post goes live. We are always trying to think about that dimensionality. And then it always kind of needs to leave you with a hook. And so Justin Jefferson kind of makes this shout out that no one can beat them. And we immediately pan to the #1 high school quarterback in the country. His name's Ryder Lyons. And he also has like a very unconventional path. He's not going straight to college. He's doing a mission for his first year. And we know people are obsessed with that type of sort of unconventional path and not necessarily going the road most traveled. So then you pan to that, and then you immediately are hooked in terms of like what's going to happen next. So we always try and build that narrative, and it's really hard to do in the first 3 seconds, but it's critical if you want to really keep that engagement and really focus on watch time over the length of a campaign.
Beautiful. So we're on the home stretch here, lightning round. Which for each of you, which brands are winning the scroll? Is there an example that you have?
I'm obsessed with what Calvin Klein's doing, and I think USPS, you're saying, I think the United States Postal Service has done a really good job being very, very fun and playful.
This is going to be a lame answer, but I'm going to go with F1 just because that's all I get in my feed now. I'm clearly being served certain things, but I think F1's done a really, really good job of harnessing all of the momentum that there is around the sport right now and making it work for them.
Those are really good answers. This is a hard one. I'm going to go against the grain a little bit and just say I've always admired Chewy because I think that they're really consistent with what they do. And you made your comments about the comment section. And I think what Chewy does really well is they live their truth all the time. So normally what you see from them is just them being good in their day-to-day, and that ends up in the feeds, which I really admire. And when I come to brands, I think how we could potentially do stuff like that.
I'm going to go with the Savannah Bananas, actually. For me, I just think the amount of, one, they're doing it so well, and baseball was in this lull, and they've really brought this youthful energy to bringing it back. They've added Broadway, they've added all sorts of theatrical elements to the game, and they've captured so many families and youth. And the way they do it on social is better than any team and from any professional league out there. And I just can't imagine if you had the wild idea to do it, the amount of no's you must have received. And I'm just thinking back to I was watching My Boss at a panel yesterday, and it was really about data versus following your gut from a marketing decision. there was no data to ever tell them that they could go create a wild, unconventional baseball team, and then it would sell out every ballpark in all over the country. And so just thinking through that, we've signed a couple banana ball players through Under Armour, and it's been some of our most engaged content as well. So just having that sense of conviction and belief, they've done such an incredible job.
Yeah, so the next question really was inspired by you, Tyler, when we were chatting. You know, how are you as marketers embodying your audience, your customers? Like, what are some of the weird and wacky things that you may not do just to be this cultural anthropologist and immerse yourself into the world of your customer?
Yeah, all the best content that ever performs, you know, how you would hope and dream is always co-created and taken with the athlete insight. And so if I look back at our campaign last month with the women's flag football players, there was the Team USA team. There was Deanna Flores, who's the leading quarterback of the Mexican national team. We switched the world around, and we had the real game, and then we had their aura world, and it was kind of this cinematic journey that they went on. But there's just a thread of text messages is like, imagine the game how you hope it will look like in 3 to 5 years, or for LA 2028 when it's an official sport. And the packed stadium, they wanted it to feel like an SEC football atmosphere, and they were giving us that creative direction, and we just followed their instincts and followed what they wanted it to look like. And ultimately it served them, which is always our number one priority. We serve athletes, but number two, it served the audience that is hoping and dreaming like this is their sport, and it has just as much fanfare as the NFL. And so for us, it's always taking that opportunity to co-create with them, whether it's just a simple text message or we have time to sit down with them for 60 minutes and say, we're going to build this campaign with you, and this is what we want the end result to look like. Now let's work backwards.
About you, Katie?
Yeah, I think very spot on, because it's not about us. It's about people are going to view what they want to view, and we're very skippable. So how do we lean into knowing what our audience wants? Also, like, I know my team specifically, we're chronically online. We joke a lot because we're like, well, we're the internet, so technically we have a way in everywhere. But I think, you know, having such a diverse team and diverse partners, we all have very different algorithms. So we make sure that we're sharing very often what we're seeing. We do trend reports where it's like, this is what's happening. These are the hot things that are happening. These are the talks that are existing. And it just keeps us fresh with ideas, and also understanding that what our view of the algorithm isn't always our customers. So getting that wider perspective.
From a sports and entertainment perspective at IBM, what I encourage my team to do is to go be a fan. That's what we're trying to enable, their fan experiences. So we have a whole plan. USTA is redoing Billie Jean King Tennis Center, and we have a developer, and her job is to go and walk every single piece of the facilities and to figure out, like, where did she get lost? What should have popped up that would have enabled her to have a better experience? How does she know what court to be going to for different matches, right? So really going through the experience of being a fan, and then us brainstorming what the digital solution is, what the technology is that we can then invent to make that seamless. One of the things that we started last year was AI generated match chat, right? So you're watching a tennis match, you can ask how many aces does someone have? What's the head to head between these two players? In tennis, a great one is like, how do you pronounce someone's last name? Because they're all very complicated. So how do we enable that seamless experience? And then once we've done that and figured out the technology solution that you didn't know you had to have, then how do we storytell around that and make it authentic to our audiences?
For us, I think it's, you know, a relationship requires back and forth. It requires a person to talk, a person to listen, a person to respond, a person to play back and forth. And so we're trying to do a lot more of that too, in everything from how we talk about product, because sometimes the marketing, you know, we're like, okay, this is how you talk about the foundation. This is how you put the foundation on. And then you look at what people describe it as, and it's a totally different set of language. It's a totally different thing. Like, we pull in gestures, like we'll watch creator content and it's like, oh, they picked up the product like this always. It's like, okay, great. Like, let's now talk about it as, and show it as a pickup like this. Or so I think just all those little things and ways of showing that we're listening, and then asking questions back when we don't understand or want to know more, just like you would do in any human relationship, it's not rocket science. It's just relationship.
Beautiful. I think we have time for one or two questions. Does anybody have a question? Yeah.
You each represent a large enterprise brand. Over the last few weeks, a large enterprise brand has been on a roller coaster ride for their CEO to bite of their product. Are any of you willing to share a point of view, good, bad, and different, on that experience internally, what may have happened to McDonald's, and how it's evolved in the conversation online?
I'll give it a shot. Yeah, it's an interesting one when things can go wrong for the CEO. I think for us, we're still founder led. So our CEO is Kevin Plank, and he's the founder of Under Armour. And when we think about our story, we think about him as a lens. And he was a walk-on at the University of Maryland, and so he has everything he does and what he gives back to the city in which he is from. We think about that in terms of our ethos as a brand. We also are doing it's our 30-year anniversary as a brand, believe it or not. We were founded in 1996. So we're thinking about bringing him into a lot of our storytelling, whether it's just angled through an episodic show or series on social, but like it's the opportunity to retell for the very first time, like our origin story. He also is a highly charismatic person. So I don't think he would bite the burger the same way. But you get him in front of a camera and you do really see this passion and why he wanted to be a disruptor in the sports space and where our journey really started. So for us, we take a really calculated approach on when we bring internal in as the new external. But yeah, you always have to be a little careful. I don't know how sometimes that stuff gets out there.
Well, I'm getting the cue that our journey has ended. So big round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.